Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast. It is Thursday, February 6th. Clemson basketball finally has center stage this week. Duke and North Carolina visiting within a span of 3 days. At TigerIllustrated.com right now, we have an update on Del Jones, who missed the Georgia Tech loss with what was reported as a sprained ankle and then an Achilles injury. We don't have full clarity on that, but we have some intel on that in an article that's up at TigerIllustrated.com this afternoon. Don't think there's any doubt that it's going to be all hands on deck, and they're going to need to be at their best if they want to compete with this juggernaut-looking Blue Devils team. My good friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold have been part of the podcast since the beginning, way back in August of 2018. They have an accomplished team of personal injury attorneys at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold based in Greenville. They are Clemson people, and their skillful attorneys have decades of experience in complicated litigation matters, taking a special interest in medical malpractice, nursing home abuse, and neglect, car accident cases that have left the individuals involved in serious trouble. For a free consultation at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, call 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. That's PARHAM law.com. Listen up, Clemson Tiger fans. Founders Federal Credit Union has a new office right on campus in the Hendricks Center. We're here to serve you with the financial tools you need and the personalized service you deserve. Not on campus, Founders has an office conveniently located on Old Greenville Highway. Stop by or visit foundersfcu.com to learn more and apply for a membership. Relax, you're with Founders. Federally insured by NCAA. Membership qualification required. Solero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Solero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Solero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Solero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Solero at solerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. Okay, just to prove that we're not only interested in Mike Noonan's company only after he wins a national title, we're going to have him on here for a highly interesting and fascinating conversation that deals a lot with the state of college athletics, and as he terms it, a hurricane that is about to hit college athletics. Here we go. All right, joined once again by Mike Noonan, who was recently in the UK and Spain recruiting. How's the jet lag recovery?
It's good. The older you get, the harder it is, Larry. But coming back this way is a lot easier than going that way with the overnight flight.
All right, what was the time frame?
I left a week ago Monday, and I was back on Tuesday night late. Yeah, so about 9 days.
I don't ask this question. I don't want to make it come off as negative, but or I don't want to make the answer come off as negative. But does that ever get old? The intercontinental recruiting.
Yeah, but it wasn't just for recruiting. I have a guy who I've worked with for about 35 years, who I call him my thinking partner. Mentor, whatever you want to call it, and he's located in the UK. He is, and he used to travel to Clemson. As a matter of fact, he's worked with a number of our coaches here as well. But he's got Parkinson's disease. And
oh no!
He's going to turn 80 this year, and traveling has become prohibitive for him. So now I go to him. And I had a wonderful 3 days with him, and then went to a little bit of recruiting in the UK. And then I was in Spain with one of our former players, Gimo Morales, who he and his brother run a couple of different projects over there that deal with recruiting. They do a project for guys in their gap year who hadn't been recruited at the level or hadn't been recognized at the level that they would have liked to. And so they go over there for a year. And then he works with all the La Liga teams with players that are released or players who want to get their education. And so I was over there with him for 2 or 3 days.
Is this mentor, is that the one who once imparted the wisdom to you? I watch people, you watch players. Am I butchering that?
No, yeah, a little bit, but yeah, same guy. And one of the best pieces of advice was back in 2010 he gave me, because I've worked for Bill for 30 years. And, the guy's been the sports psychologist for Manchester United, the English national team, FC Twente in Holland, 4 or 5 Premier League teams, Olympic swimming, British Olympic swimming. He was the national basketball coach for England. I mean, this guy he's got a resume and a half. And I ran into him at a conference over here in the United States where we were, it was at Penn State. We were across the hall from each other. And we were both reading Pat Riley's book, The Winner Within. And we just hit it off. And he invited me to England politely, which all English people do. And nobody ever shows up. And I showed up. And we've been working together graciously. He has worked with me for the last 30 years. It's the secret sauce behind, I think, any success that I've had, or part of it for sure. But his best piece of advice that he gave me is when I came to Clemson in 2010. The program wasn't in good shape, as you'll recall. And he told me, he goes, Mike, it's going to be pretty apparent pretty quickly what needs to change. He goes, your job in the first couple months that you're there is to figure out what's really good within the program and not change it. Which is, when you start a new project and you're looking at something, that's all you're trying to do is fix it, right? But what he had the sage wisdom to look at it and say, okay, what is it about Clemson and Clemson athletics and Clemson soccer that is really, really good, and focus on that.
Where I learned about Bill?
Where's that?
A podcast you did back in September, Executive Access with Jamie Tozzi.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. And he's been on, there's some great podcasts that he's been on too, Mulligan Brothers, and I think a couple of the others, but he's very highly sought after, even to this day. And he's slowing down a little bit, obviously, with the Parkinson's physically, but mentally, he's still so sharp, and we're gonna, have the benefit of that. He Zooms with our team during the year, and he's got such experience with our sport in particular, and he's such a great storyteller that our guys are riveted every time they get an opportunity to listen to him too. So yeah, so this was kind of cool. It was 3 days. It's kind of a Tuesdays with Maury type of visit, and just really refreshing.
Well, the podcast you did back in September, I have a legal pad that's a page is filled up with things I wrote down. It's like, dang, I can't believe I've never thought to ask him about that. Including you, I guess 2 or 3, 4 years into your tenure here, you were establishing sort of the foundational principles of recruiting that you wanted to sort of reshape that realm, and you really borrowed a lot from Dabo in your sort of construction of that. Can maybe paint the picture of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, again, going back to the beginning, we were so shy on talent when I first got here, athleticism, everything, that immediately we tried to fix that with getting the most talented players we could that were available that would come to Clemson. And, it's one step forward, 2 steps back. And we had our core values of what we want the program to be, but we were failing a little bit because we got better talent, but there were issues with better talent in realms of that didn't match our core values. And so I listened to Dabo, and I saw a little bit of his recruiting and talked to him a little bit about his recruiting principles. And he said something to me, that it's not what works everywhere, it's what works at Clemson. And that kind of like flipped a switch. And so my assistants and I decided, what is it that we do that works specifically here at Clemson? And with me as a head coach and us in the environment that we have and the environment that we want to create and what works with our core values. And so we narrowed that down to, 10 recruiting criteria, and decided that we were going to recruit to these, and that, any player who comes into our program would have to tick 7 of the 10 things. And then we would have them in our program. And so that's, that was kind of the basis behind it. And it's worked really, really well, because Clemson's different than Brown, where I was, and Brown's different than the University of New Hampshire. What works at Clemson may not work at the University of New Hampshire or other places. And so we came up with, the first one was no academic issues. So any player had to be over a 3.0 and 1,000 on their SATs. That's one of them. They needed to be a captain, a leadership. They had to show responsibility in some form or fashion. Reliability was important to us. And the way we measured that is when we talked to the prospect, we'd ask him about his job and what he did for a job. And many of these top athletes parents will tell you, well, they don't have time for a job. Well, that's the first clue that one, they may not be reliable because mom and dad are taking care of them and they don't take care of their own stuff. They need to be independent. The kids take care of their own details. They had to have a capacity with overload. It had to be, again, more than just soccer and school. We felt the resiliency and having something to prove was important, and we needed to find that out. The way you find that out is you find out through questioning what difficult events they've been through in their life. What's the most difficult thing you've had to face in your life? Respectful, how they dealt with authority and their parents, referees. We had to discern whether they came from an environment of discipline and accountability, because that's what our program's about. And then lastly, that they had to have won something significant, a state championship, spelling bee. We didn't care what it was, but that they were winners and they know how to win something, which means that they know how to sacrifice in order to win something significant in their lives. So, and we started working with those. I don't think that's all of them, but those are, engaged parents, not enabling parents. That's a big one. And did every player who's come through our program meet 7 out of 10? Probably not everyone, but I'd say 90% of them have. And I don't think many have fallen below 6. And many of the players that we recruited are 8, 9, maybe even 10 of them.
And so what does it look like or feel like? Can you paint the picture of when you don't have those types and how it's the main sort of stressors for a head coach? I think you also said on that podcast, you no longer have to sleep with your phone at your bedside table.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it too, right? And I say this all the time, Larry, is that there's a difference between being a Clemson student and being a Clemson soccer player. And if you want to be a Clemson student, you're probably not going to be a Clemson soccer player, because the soccer players or soccer or the athletes at Clemson have to live a different life, and they have to sacrifice some of what the general student able and capable of doing. And when you get that right, there's just more peace of mind because their purpose is something greater than themselves. And they're willing to sacrifice for their teammates and maybe not do some of the things that their peers are doing over the weekends, or, they sacrifice a lot of times doing internships. And that's why it's fantastic that we've got this UPIC program now in the athletic department. They can't go abroad for the year to study, for a semester or for a year. I mean, there's a lot that, they sacrifice in order to be athletes, and that's kind of what it looks like.
So we're not talking, when you talk about having to have your phone on you at all times, even when you're sleeping, are you getting calls like, oh, such and such is it Tigertown Tavern acting like an idiot? Like what is that? What's the?
Yeah, those I don't get many of those anymore, but they my first few years here at Clemson, they were pretty apparent. I think you remember the Sammy Watkins Amadou thing way back in, I think that was 2012.
Yep.
So yeah, that's when the phone was by the bed.
That's a good picture or that's a vivid picture to paint.
Yeah, and to both of those athletes' credit, right? They took that experience and turned it on its head, and they both had a price to pay. There were consequences for that. And both of those athletes responded in a wonderful way. T is still playing professionally in Louisville. He's had a 12 or 14-year professional career. Obviously, Sammy's was a higher profile professional career, Super Bowl winner, and the rest of it. But that's what we do in these environments when you do make a mistake and when things don't go exactly linear with your success. And that's the cool part about the environments that we live in here in college athletics. And I certainly hope that we're not eroding some of that with some of the values that are not being upheld with transfer portals and the way things are going.
Staying on the Sammy incident for one more moment. Recently, very recently, within the last couple of months, I've heard both Dabo and Jeff Scott, independent of each other, and I don't remember the context, the respective context of them saying it, but both of them said Sammy was among the lowest maintenance guys they ever had. And it really sort of brings home the really unfortunate part of one incident. And full disclosure, I did far worse when I was Sammy's age, many times. But I didn't have to deal with, and honestly, like full disclosure too, that one incident sort of colored my opinion of Sammy over the rest of his career, and unfairly, just given what the reality was on the inside. And it sounds like both of those guys took that incident as an opportunity for growth, and we're better for it. And the unfortunate part is just the perceptions that color, one misstep of a college kid, of a high-profile college kid, I guess I should say.
Right. I tease T, that's his nickname. I tease T all the time. I said, T, you made Sports Illustrated the wrong way. But he was, when we won the national championship in Louisville 2 years ago, obviously he was very present, spoke to the team. He's a great dad now. And he, we end every call that we have with each other. Love you, coach. Love you, T. And our relationship is better as a result of, a mistake. And they're young men. They're going to make mistakes. But you've got to also be willing to pay the consequences. And in the environment today, something like that happens, and they have an opportunity to I flew out to T's house and sat with his parents and told his parents that we only got 9.9 scholarships, and that's not going to be how we represent our team. So we were going to take scholarship money away from him, and he could earn it back. But these days, if you do that, the player's not staying here and they're leaving to go someplace else because they can just up and leave. And what values are you teaching at that point? So, I'm concerned. I still believe that if we continue to do things relationally, that you can still have major impact on young people's lives. But I have a level of concern that some of those things and those lessons that both Sammy and Amadou learned may take longer. I don't think that they won't be learned, but you may have to make a few more mistakes before you actually learn them. And that's a shame.
And given that this was, 2012, that's a long time ago. What was it? They were in a car, got pulled over, and they had weed and pills. I think is what it was, right?
Right. There's something. Yeah.
Okay.
Illegal substances in the car.
Yeah.
And again, right, according to both of them, I believe both of them, they weren't for them. They were doing it for a girl.
Right.
Now you can call me naive, but you've heard Dabo's descriptions and Jeff Scott's descriptions, and I can tell you my descriptions. I believe them.
Yeah. Well, we won't litigate
that time in your life, Larry. We do anything for a girl.
No question. Getting to the current can of worms that you've alluded to the last couple of minutes, I really wanted to tackle a lot of that today. And I guess we could start with just like a couple of weeks ago on our message board at tigerillustrated.com, somebody posted a tweet from someone from USMNT Prospectus. I don't know what that is, but anyway, I think it's recruiting.
U.S. men's national team.
Okay. So it's not it's basically an unofficial account that follows.
Yeah.
Okay.
The men's national team. Yeah. In soccer.
And so basically this is a long tweet, and I'm going to try to condense it. But it says, this process has been moving along this month. It is believed that 2026-27 is when these changes would be put into place. I don't yet know for a fact that 2025-26 season has been ruled out. It includes all ACC and Big Ten soccer programs to move forward with leaving the NCAA and joining the professional ranks. Blah, 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 blah. Numerous sources have mentioned that many top programs are already starting to plan in a way that recognizes this coming shift. This move would be with the backing of the U.S. Soccer Federation, and this is a move to professionalize college soccer. The season would be 9 to 10 months long. Speculation is that the USL League One offered these programs the chance to join their league structure as professional teams, while MLS has been pushing back on the idea to USSF because they believe the move would hurt the place of their developmental league, MLS Next Pro. All right, anyway, we're getting into the weeds there. Blah, blah, blah. As best as I can tell, no one really doubts that the ACC and Big Ten programs are on board. Beyond that, my belief is that there are other programs, but it is not all of D1 men's college soccer at this point. Anyway, I say all that to say, is this anywhere near accurate? And if not, what would be the accurate view of these pretty seismic developments, I guess we could say?
Yeah, it's about 50% accurate and 50% inaccurate. The professional side of what they're saying is completely inaccurate. There's going to be no affiliation with the professional league, USL, MLS, or the rest. For many years now, I've been involved for probably 18 to 20 years in trying to get our college soccer, with a bunch of my colleagues and about 5 different attempts, to become a 2-semester sport, modernize the sport. We have the shortest, highest incident of injuries per athlete, in the shortest, most compact season in a sport that physiologically has been proven you can't play that many games in a short period of time. So we've tried to go over 2 semesters, not expand the number of games or the number of hours that the athletes use, but it would lead to less class time. It's better for the health and wellness of the athletes. And we have hit roadblocks in the bureaucracy of the NCAA every time. We had it over the line. It was called the 21st century model, and we had the votes conference-wise, it looked like, so that it was going to be adopted just before COVID hit. COVID hit, and the NCAA tabled all legislation. After that happened, we tried to revive it. There was more bureaucracy in 2 different committees, and it never got heard. So with all the changes that are going on in college athletics, and there's been a number of changes in your governing body at the U.S. Soccer, with leadership changes and the embracing of what the fabric of college soccer does in the development of the game by the new leadership, we re-engaged in conversations with them. And there was a concept, a pilot program put forward, similar to, as I told you, kind of like the college football playoffs. We're not leaving the NCAA. It's just that our we would play over 2 semesters, and there would be a national tournament sponsored by U.S. Soccer at the end of the spring portion of our season. So we would do our conference tournament and then the national tournament at the end of our spring season. We'd play NCAA rules, but the national governing body would financially pay for the championship, and we would be able to progress our game in a way that we hadn't been able to. So that was discussed at length. It also would have started this year in 25 as a lead up to the World Cup. So they would have finished in late May, early June, and then the World Cup would have taken over, and which has been a great thing for college soccer because of some of the other changes that are going on in college athletics. The athletic directors ultimately did not approve it for 25, but have been in great discussions with U.S. Soccer in potentially having the pilot program be adopted for 26-27, which we all feel that is favorably going to happen. It is not an exclusive thing with just the Big Ten and the ACC. I think there's models with 36 teams, there's models with 48 teams, there's models with 72 teams. But similar to the House case, I mean, you can opt in or you can not opt in. But that's the Cliff Notes version of what's been going on.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It's a big change.
And this is within the last hour. I mean, there's no off season anymore, Mike. Within the last hour, Ross Dellinger, the premier reporter on all these realignment topics, and sort of all the above, he writes for Yahoo, has a monster story. The headline is "Monumental Shift. Power Conferences, not NCAA, to control policing athlete compensation. And I'm going to try to skim through some of this. A committee of power. I'm assuming you haven't read it yet, so I guess I can enlighten you. A committee of power conference administrators took significant steps this week toward the creation of a new entity that will govern the evolving professionalized aspects of college sports, a milestone moment in the industry's history. During a 2-day summit in the nation's capital, a transition team charged with operationalizing concept of the House settlement inched closer to establishing a new structure to oversee, manage, and enforce the settlement-related athlete compensation system for all of NCAA Division I. The newly created LLC, overseen by a CEO or executive director, is centered on a new enforcement arm to police violators of the industry's new salary cap, and is expected to feature revenue-sharing policies and a corresponding penalty structure for violators. Blah, 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 blah. And then the most interesting part for Clemson folks is farther down where it says, members of the committee, and the committee, okay, it'll feature a transition team that is made up of 2 athletic directors from each of the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and Big 12 conferences. The 4 power leagues, the named defendants in the settlement, are leading the implementation of the agreement's most significant piece, that schools are permitted annually to share millions in revenue with athletes under a capped system scheduled to begin July 1st. Members of that committee, unannounced and kept secret now for months, are from some of college football's biggest brands, including Ohio State's Ross Bjork and Mike Noonan's boss, Clemson's Graham Neff, Texas A&M's Trev Alberts. I could go on, but maybe we'll pause for a second to get your reaction, interpretations, analysis from somebody who's way more informed than I and the listeners.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, the effect of that is not going to trickle down that much into our sport, but it is reality. Graham has kept us informed of right up to the minute of everything that's going on, and he is one of the brightest young minds in the business of college athletics, and I'm really proud and happy to have him as on that committee and is one of the forebearers of what's to come. I think that's fantastic, but because he thinks things through in a way that's holistic, but also realistic, and Graham sent us all the head coaches. I forget when it was. Maybe it was Monday night telling us that he was up in Washington working on some house case stuff on a committee, and he's very, very transparent in what's going on. So if that's what came out of it, that's what came out of it, and we'll support. Clemson will support things the way that we always have to be able to compete and have our athletes have the advantage to compete at the highest level.
Something you mentioned. I'm sorry.
Not going to change.
I apologize for interrupting.
I said, and I don't think that. No, I don't think that's going to change. That's what we do at Clemson in our athletic department.
Something you mentioned before I hit record is Conference Zero, and I haven't heard that term much. Maybe I haven't read up enough on it, but can you maybe elaborate on what?
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether that's the actual term, but that's what kind of delayed our soccer project, because there's a move afoot with the Power Four conferences to have more influence on all championships, not just the CFP. And that move is happening right now, and discussions are happening at the athletic director and I think the presidential levels of those schools. And I think it's generally referred to as Conference Zero. And so that's what I know. I don't know the details or much other than what I've just told you.
All right. The next question or topic is going to feature a pretty long preamble. So for most of my professional existence, I haven't really thought a whole lot about Olympic sports. It's 99% football and big time this, big time that. And I guess that's kind of self-explanatory. But when you have a daughter or two daughters or at least one, that is college material to participate in one of those Olympic sports, you start thinking a lot more about it. And I started thinking a lot more deeply about it last summer when the long-term sort of trickle-down ramifications of the revenue sharing model combined with the scholarship enhancements, I guess, is maybe, or additions or modifications, maybe. I don't know what the totally precise term would be, but I start doing the math, and then I start hearing this past fall about SEC and ACC schools, basically like track coaches or swimming coaches or whatever, calling up high school seniors who had already committed but not signed and said, sorry, we can no longer offer you. And so basically the revenue share model, of course, the large majority of that is going to football. And, if you're an AD, you're trying to come up with every way you can to come up with that $20.5 million. And that will obviously involve some cutting and that with the Olympic sports, it consists of, okay, sorry, but we're not going to be able to do what we did under the previous model. So that's how I want to get to how this sort of your perspective, the Clemson men's soccer perspective on the revenue sharing model, and when, 80+%, maybe 85% of that 20.5 billion is going to football, 11% going to basketball. I think maybe those terms or maybe those numbers aren't totally accurate, but roughly that. What does it mean for Olympic sports? What does it mean? What does it mean for men's soccer? Just I'd love for people to hear that perspective, because that's not often shared in the sort of big time conversation about it, for lack of better words.
Yeah, I can speak maybe in generalities, Larry, but I can't speak in specifics because nothing has happened and nothing will happen until the court case is settled, right? And there's a ways to go before that happens. And a lot of those decisions as to where the revenue sharing is going is beyond my control. So, I try not to worry too much about it. There will be enhancements, but there are also reductions, and that's the tough part about things. And I think that I can talk about the human side of coaching right now in light of some of those things, and the human side of, as you talked about, student athletes who thought that they were all set. And they were headed to certain schools under certain conditions. And then basically the goalposts have completely moved, right? So the reductions come in terms of roster limits, right? So we had a roster of 34 this past year, and the roster limit that we now will have to play with is 28. I had already recruited a number of and committed a number of players that would have taken us over the limit of 28. So I had to have some difficult conversations with some young people on the current team, mostly, and a couple who hadn't quite gotten here yet. And those conversations are some of the most difficult conversations I've had to have in my coaching career that stems 35 years. Because when we recruit a kid to come to Clemson, we recruit a kid not to win a national championship at Clemson. We recruit a kid to graduate from Clemson. And I feel that's my greatest responsibility as a coach. And I think that was compromised by some of the things that are happening currently in college athletics. That's hard to deal with when integrity is one of the greatest values that someone has. So that's hard. And that happened to coaches all over the country. And as a result, it happened to student athletes who had dreams, lifetime dreams, of being able to put on a uniform at certain places. The rug was pulled out from underneath them. And that's a shame. In terms of the revenue share with Olympic sports, I can tell you that, at different places it's going to be different things, and nobody really knows where it's all going to land. So we're all kind of waiting, and there's a lot of shadow boxing going on in the recruiting competition sphere. But nobody knows exactly where it's going to land and how people are going to fund, not fund, or eliminate Olympic sports. And I think that's yet to be determined and will be on a case-by-case, school-by-school, conference-by-conference basis.
So the roster limit, you said, went from 34 to 28. How about the and then the scholarships? What the scholarships for soccer are increasing?
They can increase. We have been at 9.9 scholarships forever, right? Equivalency sport, just like baseball. I think baseball was higher than that, but doesn't even come close to covering what their needs are in order to be competitive here at Clemson. An amazing job that Coach Package has done, and Lonnie and Jack before him. But so now our scholarships will be enhanced because Clemson has decided that as part of the equation, they're going to enhance the number of scholarships. We still are not sure exactly what that looks like, but it looks like it's a significant investment that the athletic department is going to make in that. So that's certainly going to help from a competitive standpoint. And I think that's that's why Clemson's one of the greatest places to work as a coach and come to as a student athlete, is because athletics is important here, and it's important to the fabric of the university. And when change comes, Clemson is going to embrace the change, and again, under the current leadership with the president and Graham, not only are they going to embrace it, but they're going to try and take advantage of it. And that's kind of been the attitude that we've had, as we've gone through this calendar year. But it has created some real hardships and some real soul-searching times for coaches, and I think you can see that throughout the country in our profession.
Upstate foodies, want to take a moment to talk to you about our favorite taco spot, Willie Taco. 5 locations across the upstate. This award-winning team has been serving up fresh taco fusion for a solid decade now. The chefs at Willie Taco utilize the freshest, most creative, and sometimes unexpected ingredients in their kitchens. Come see why Southern Living, Garden and Gun, and Food and Wine Magazine are raving about Willie Taco and their signature offerings, such as their Southern Tide, crispy avocado, Nashville hot chicken tacos, literally flavors you will not find anywhere else, folks. And don't forget about the cocktails. Super fresh margaritas, ice cold cerveza, and over 80 tequilas served up daily from behind the bar. So don't wait, folks. Your Willie Taco Familia is ready to serve you up their twist on funky, fresh fusion. It's the Willie way. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith & Archambault. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced, professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. When you're ready for a complete renovation in your home or business, open the door to more with Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Their local experienced team will totally transform any room space, from beautiful floor coverings to construction to finished details. Harris handles every step of your renovation process, whether it's a kitchen or living room or an industrial or educational setting, like some of the positively stunning work they've done at Clemson University. Go to discoverharris.com and experience a total renovation transformation from Harris Home and Harris Commercial. What I'm concerned about sort of long term, and what I sort of foresee as being inevitable is the ramifications of finally having collective bargaining and the employee relationship or arrangement with at least the football, men's basketball, whatever you want to call this conference, whatever it becomes, and you can start to, you can see the shifts right now, even today, sort of pointing toward that is if there's collective bargaining, then through that process, you can easily see the players union or whatever it is, whatever it's called, saying, wait, only 20.5 million? Really? You know, what percentage of the revenues is that? And what percentage of the revenues, the NFL revenues, do NFL players get? Over 50%? Okay, so it's inevitable that goes up. And so what if the number is 40 million? Well, that's when, and I hate to be Mr. Doomsday, but that's when I find it hard to see how you do how you do everything you've been doing, you know, it's in terms of the whole model, the Olympic sports and everything.
Well, I think we're a long way away from that, Larry, to be honest with you. And I think the Olympic sports, I think that's why, if you look back to the conversation we had about our pilot program for soccer, aligning ourselves with the national governing body, right? Olympic sports, our Olympic committee, college athletics is the breeding ground for the Olympics, right? And that's going to need to be funded somehow. And I think that you're going to see many of our Olympic sports and the national governing bodies, the model that we're putting forward, becoming more pervasive throughout Olympic sports as these challenges financially in the professional side of college athletics present themselves. But we got a long way to go before we get there. There's a settlement that needs to be finished on the House case to start the ball rolling. There's an elective mechanism that is, you know, you can come in and you can come out, and I think that'll have some legal ramifications. There's going to be Title IX implications to all this, which obviously you and I both have daughters that are involved in Olympic collegiate sports. So those are good things. And so, you know, I think, and it just needs to be managed by people. And that's why, I said earlier, I mean, Graham's on the forefront and needs to be managed by people reasonably, but in a holistic way. I think that progress is one thing, and I think that this is progress, but the values and the things that college athletics and amateur athletics has always taught, the love of the game, is something that you still want to capture. And when we talk about things, and I talk to my sports supervisor, Kyle Young, and when we talk about things here at Clemson, as they get down to dollars and numbers and all these minutiae that we're talking about right now, I say to him, I said, Kyle, the number one thing is that Clemson athletics cannot lose its soul. We can't lose our soul. We've got to protect our soul. And I think Graham's on board with that. And I think that the leadership of the school understands that, because that's what makes college athletics in Clemson so special. And anytime there's power and money, my father always told me, power corrupts, power and money corrupt completely. And you see that in a number of different institutions throughout our country. And I'm hoping that we can keep our soul here at Clemson. I believe very strongly in the current leadership we will.
Yeah, can you maybe speak to maybe the more holistic, broader implications of 18 to 22-year-olds suddenly walking around with a bunch of money in their bank account, and suddenly with the power to, at the first time they're chewed out on a practice field by their coach, to say, all right, I'm packing my bags and leaving. Like what? I don't know if I would say damage, but I'm just saying like just the raw numbers of what does that mean? What has that meant? Just the impact of that. Cause I know that, if I were in college and had, I don't know what the number, $200,000 in my bank account, I might not have gone to class or I would have been a lot less motivated to go to class.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see those things. But I think that instead of criticizing Coach Sweeney for not using the transfer portal, maybe people should cheer Coach Sweeney for not using the transfer portal and proliferating that type of lack of stick-to-itiveness or resilience that championship performance needs and development of young people and young lives. I mean, okay, yeah, you won the national championship in 2018, and people are saying there's a drop off, but I don't know. That's a team that's been developing for 3 or 4 years. I remember when I stood in the indoor football center when Cade Klubnik was in the spring before his actual real freshman year, and Dabo turned to me and he looked at me and he goes, "Wait till you see this kid. This kid is going to, he may be the best we've ever had here."
Whoa.
And that's a long time ago. Now, if that coach saw that back then, well, look where he is now. And look where that team has evolved and developed too. And guess what? Those kids, they're going to be able to drive around in Ferraris. And, there's going to be a little bit of jealousy on our part when my guys are driving around on scooters still, right? But I don't think that you're going to see the same character, and you're going to see that, you're going to have some of it because of sheer numbers, but I think you're going to see people, I can't remember all the, those national championship teams that Dabo had and that I had. It's character-based. Everybody's going to get talent, but, the leadership and the character of those teams is what won national championships. And I think the character and leadership of any national championship team, University of Vermont this year in men's soccer, Ohio State in football this year. I mean, that's where it's based, and you're going to have to continue teaching those values. And that's the holistic side of things. And those kids who are making $200,000, hopefully they come from families that have taught values to them that education is worth more than money, and they will go to class. And not all will, and they're going to be, like I said, power and money corrupts completely. There's going to be some corruption, and there's going to be. That's why you had the announcement today of the governing group that's going to, police. That means there's going to be corruption. There's going to be laws broken. But again, that goes back to the soul, and the soul of what we do in our profession, and the way we do it. And again, the way our coaches do it here at Clemson it's special. And that's why we've been successful at the highest level here.
On the aforementioned podcast back in September, you said you're trying to find clarity amid chaos. What does that chaos look like from your seat? Yeah,
and I think I've got to attribute that phrase. That's a phrase that Graham Neff was using in the fall with us as he was trying to sort everything out. But yeah, it's chaos in my seat was how do I reduce this roster? Who do I reduce it with? How many scholarships are we going to get? Right? How do I recruit right now? Do I promise this, and then if the settlement doesn't happen, I give them that? Will they still come? I mean, it's the chaos of what we're trying to do within the pilot program. I mean, that's also what makes the change and chaos sometimes is what is exciting about what we do, because every day is not going to be the same. But Yeah, I mean, there's that uncertainty, and when it hits in April, and we know whether the suit is going to be adopted from April to July 1st, right? The chaos right now of NIL and everybody trying to pay the NIL dollars to athletes when they know that come July 1st, it's probably going to be regulated in a different way. It's chaos. And you've got to manage that in an organized fashion. And the only way to manage that chaos and try to get clarity is to stick to the values that you've had in your program, that you are trying to teach the young men and young women that we have here, and be transparent with them. And it was difficult this year from a competitive standpoint, because as I got news, I was telling my student athletes, I had a choice. Either I told them, right, and then you hit them with a sledgehammer at the end, or you keep them up to speed. And my choice was to let them know everything that I knew when I knew it. And that creates fear for some of the kids. Am I going to be here? Aren't I going to be here? I mean, it was a difficult fall. Difficult. And I'm not saying, feel sorry for Mike Noonan, because it was happening all over the country.
All right. I'm going to ask you the easiest question of this whole interview. Tell me about your daughter, Kaylee, and how she's doing up at Holy Cross as a golfer. She's a junior, right?
She is a junior. She's doing great. She was elected captain of the team, so she's the captain of the team. She's got a really, really good developing young group of women that are up there working with her that she enjoys, and she's knocking it out of the park academically and trying to figure out where the next steps might be moving forward, whether they're within the sport of golf or outside the sport of golf. And, I would say that Kelly is a little bit of a late mature emotionally, but going away to college and having to be on your own, going that far away, has done wonders for her. And I'm really proud of the woman that she is. And I'm looking forward. I have made it pretty clear in our schedule that I am going to see more than one of Kaylee's golf events, which is what I've done the first 2 years. And I saw one this fall, and I'm definitely going to see 1 or 2 this spring.
I was reading an article on her, and I was uplifted by a quote that she gave. In the article, she said, "When I was younger, it was a little bit hard for me to listen to a lot of my dad's advice." and I said to myself, "Wow, okay. If her dad's a coach and she's not listening to him, then I feel a little bit better about my daughters not listening to my advice because I'm not a coach."
Yeah, well, they all listen, but it's selective at times, and fortunately, she doesn't listen she listens to her mom more than me on most things. But when it comes to the athletic piece, she's coming around a little bit.
I don't know if it was a revelation at all, but through watching my girls run, it would not make any sense for me to give advice on, like, hey, I thought you look, your mechanics broke down a little bit on a third turn. I mean, these girls spend so much time on their craft and so much time being coached by good coaches who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's an insult to try to dispense any type of advice other than, hey, great job, keep it up. Like, to keep it general. Have fun, yeah.
Yeah. If anybody's seen me play golf, they know that I can't give any advice of the game. So I think that's why I play soccer, because my dad knew nothing about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why Kelly decided to play golf, is that she saw her dad swing one time and said, he knows nothing about this, so I can go do this. So, and he's never going to be any good at it. But yeah, we talk about team building things, and we talk about goal setting, the things that are helpful. And I only give her advice when she calls and asks, and the rest of it I leave it up to her to manage on her own. And I trust her and love her, and she seems to be doing a really, really good job. So, like I said, proud dad, and I know that you are too, and can't wait to hear the stories of the Division I cross country meets and track meets that you have in your future.
All right, you coached my oldest daughter for one game.
We've been here before, Larry.
We have, but I need to refresh. It was YMCA soccer, spring break, I believe, for Clemson. The coach was a Clemson student, just didn't show up. I think she might have had an exam or something. I don't know what it was, but the important part is she wasn't there and didn't tell us. And I think arguably your most impressive coaching win of your decorated career might have been that day on the YMCA field.
The under 10 YMCA.
Yes, because that team hadn't scored a goal in like 3 games, and you made it about fun, and they score a goal in the first 30 seconds. So I say all that to say, what advice would you give my senior who's about to go to start a Division I career at Appalachian State?
Listen to her coaches, embrace the opportunity, and have some fun, and enjoy her teammates. I mean, that's what it's about. But it's joy and to do her very, very best. And just like I said to Kaylee, I said, you can't control a lot of decisions. The only thing you can control is your effort and your attitude, and make sure that stays in a place where everybody can see that you're trying to strive to achieve your best. And that's all I tell any athlete as they go off to college. It's the best. Everybody says it's the best 4 years of your life. I'm not sure whether it's the best 4 years of your life, but it's certainly, if you're a college athlete, and I say this to our guys, because most of our guys, in our locker room, they want to be a pro, or maybe in the cross country they want to run in the Olympics, but very few people get to. So the experience of playing college sport and being involved in the team is going to be the greatest time of your life in your sport, and don't let it miss you. So she's gonna kill it.
Toughest question is saved for last. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
The Grateful Brothers are playing February 22nd in Greenville. Are you going to be there?
I will be there. February 22nd. If I'm in town, Larry, I can't make your late night schedule in Clemson and in Columbia, South Carolina. But hey, listen, I follow you guys like I follow the dead. The next question is, how good are your seats at the Trey Show at Peace Center?
Oh man, I managed to finagle a box from a good friend of mine.
There you go. That was my best Christmas present.
Oh man,
Debbie got me tickets to Trey at the Peace Center and Elvis Costello later in the year.
Oh, that's right. Is Elvis Costello playing the Peace Center as well?
Elvis and the Attraction, so the original band.
Oh man,
that's going to be so cool.
Well, Mike, I'm sure you have better things to do. The travesty of this podcast is we spent only about a minute and a half talking about music, so maybe we'll reserve some time for our next visit.
That'd be good. I love talking to you, Larry, and thank you for all you do to cover Clemson athletics. And yeah, it's gonna stay tuned, buckle up, and hold on tight, because we're gonna go through a hurricane.
I don't know if that's very comforting, Mike.
Hey, that's it. I've survived a lot of hurricanes, and we survived a number of them. And on the backside of it, you'll be better, and we'll be better because our community will grow closer together.
Whoa! Batten down the hatches, Mike Noonan says. Really appreciate his time. Always such a fun and enlightening and intellectual conversation with him. I'd like to thank our sponsors, our long-running sponsors, for continuing to help make this happen. And, of course, thanks so much to every one of you for continuing to listen. It is greatly appreciated. Cheers.